Hello, sugar beet growers. Rob Gerstenberger here for Beta Seed. Hey, today I want to talk about the Beta Seed hybrids for 2021 and some of the hybrids and how they performed this last year. So the 2021 performance and the 2022 varieties we have available. First, let's recap a little bit about the spring. What a spring we had operating under the pandemic and all the uncertainty. We got an early start this spring. We had freezing temperatures and so there was a lot of uncertainty whether the crop was going to emerge. And then it was extremely dry in a lot of areas and the crop came up really slow. This is a picture of some seedlings and what we were looking at towards the end of April this year. And there was a lot of uncertainty with these seedlings. We didn't know whether they were going to make it, and in some cases we ended up replanting. And this year was the second largest replant year that I've ever experienced with Beta Seed since I've been the sales manager here in Michigan. So in the end, it was really successful. We had the highest tonnage ever. Who would have ever dreamed we would see 37-ton average or 37.4? 50-ton fields were not uncommon. I mean, there was a lot of them this year, and so congratulations to you guys. You endured a lot, a wet fall, but we were successful getting the crop up and going, and you were successful getting this crop harvested, and so congratulations again. So I'm going to talk about the varieties we have available for this next year and some of the things that you need to consider before making your variety choices. So the first thing is, do I need nematode or non-nematode? Now we have another choice that you have to make. We have CR Plus varieties available too, and they've worked really well this year. We had two guys, or lots of different guys, that grew them this past year, and I heard many good comments. Beta Seed 1941, we had two fellas here that were kind of ambassadors for us on social media. They did a lot of posting, and so I put their photos up here, Seth Brillett and Clark Gearstacker, and both of them were very impressed with the performance of the Beta Seed 1941. I'm going to talk about all the varieties we have approved for 22. I have performance information in here from the OVTs, sugar beet advancement trials, and some other field trials I'm going to show you too. So let's just jump right in and look at the varieties we have approved for 2022, and we have 1703 approved. It meets full approval. We have Beta Seed 197N. It meets full approval. We have 1606 approved again. It's a specialty approved nematode variety. Then we have two CR Plus varieties that have a special approval, 1941 and 1065. I'm going to talk a minute about the first year entries. We have two CR Plus varieties that are on approval track because the second generation now is making it for RST, so that's really important that we have higher sugar in our varieties. So here is the official variety trial information from Michigan Sugar, average of 8 locations, and I highlighted all the Beta Seed varieties in green that I just spoke about here, and you'll see that they're all relatively good performers in the trials, all in the upper half of the trials. So just you got a lot of good selection coming this next year with our Beta Seed varieties. 1703, it's kind of been a workhorse variety. It really had good Cercospora tolerance, and it has good Cercospora tolerance, and it comes with a pretty well balanced package, high for rhizomania, more of a moderate Aphanomyces variety, has moderate fusarium tolerance, very good on root aphid, Cercospora, and Rhizoctonia. So never see much Rhizoctonia root rot in this variety. It has pretty good sugar, and it's a high tonnage variety. So it's really a well balanced variety, and it gives you Cercospora protection that a lot of the varieties in the past didn't have. So it was around 75 to 80% of the checks for Cercospora, which is really pretty good. When you get under 100% of the checks, you get some really good Cercospora tolerance coming in the varieties. This is the Sugar Beet Advancement average of 6 trial locations from Chaffin, DVL Farms, Kern Farms in Ontario, Kretzmer Brothers in Caseville, Sylvester Farms, and Wadsworth Farms. And you'll see 1703 was the 5th out of 12 varieties as far as revenue per acre. So it really did a good job, a really good job for growers, and it's a good full season variety. Had good tonnage here, 42.8 ton and 17.1% sugar. The average of all these varieties was 17, so it was just above on sugar for an average. So just a really good, well-balanced variety. Take a really close look at 1703 this next year. I think you'll find it'll fit on a lot of your acres. Nematode growers, you've probably used 1606 in the past. It has got really high rhizomania tolerance, high AF, fusarium, and root aphid tolerance. It's a moderate Cercospora variety. It doesn't have the best Cercospora tolerance, but it's as good Cercospora tolerance as we have in the nematode varieties right now. So it's a really good variety. It had an exceptional year in grower fields, and in the 6 trial average, it had a great year. It's a high tonnage variety with good sugar. So it actually topped the Sugar Beet Advancement trial average of 6 locations, as you can see here. So another good choice for you if you need a nematode variety. This has been a really good performer. Guys always comment about the root rot tolerance that this variety has, so they really like that. 197N2 is another nematode variety. So it was limited last year. It's now on full approval, and it's a real high yielding variety too. It has good rhizomania tolerance, very high Aphanomyces fusarium, and root aphid tolerance, again similar to 1606. It's a moderate Cercospora tolerant variety. Good nematode tolerance. Rhizoctonia tolerance is excellent. Has higher sugar, has a little better sugar than 1606, and it's a high tonnage variety. So another good variety, and it pays really similar to 1606. This is the Michigan Sugar 2020 data and the 2021 data combined, and you'll see I circled the revenue per acre for 1606 and 197N. They're very close to being the same, so both these varieties would work well for you in your nematode fields. You will have to have a full season spray program for fungicide with both of these varieties, because they're not as good as these CR Plus varieties or 1703 for Cercospora tolerance. Tons per acre, Beta Seed just shines, as you'll see, or tons per acre. We also now have some of the best Cercospora tolerant varieties. If you take a look there at 1065 and 1941, 1065 is 49% of the checks. 1941 is 41% of the checks. And I said, boy, if we get it, when you get under 100, you were doing good in the past. So these two varieties are just outstanding for Cercospora tolerance. Great fusarium and rhizomania tolerance in those two varieties. Good Aphanomyces tolerance, especially in 1941. Actually, it's a good plus. So they all come with adequate root aphid tolerance too, and they yielded really well this year, and I'm going to get into showing you some of that here in just a second. So take a close look at the Beta Seed varieties. Let's talk a little more about CR Plus before I move into some of the performance data on 1941 and 1065. CR Plus is a KWS trait developed that our breeders are now putting into all our varieties. They're developing new varieties. We expect to see a nematode variety this next year with the KWS CR Plus trait. So that will be entered hopefully in the OVTs this next year. So that's going to be something really interesting to watch and see develop. If we can get the nematode varieties down into that 50% of the checks that where we're at now, I mean, your spray load is going to just really decrease through the summer then, and we should be lowering inoculum and everything else in our fields. So 1941, here's some performance data from the Chris Guza farm. Sugar beet advancement did 3 CR Plus trials. This was the best of all the CR Plus trials this year. The other 2 had some adverse weather. One was not even harvested, and the other one at Harabos over in Gratiot County, they had about 10 inches of rain in a week's time, and so there was really no difference if you look at that one, and I didn't include it, but in any of the varieties. But so the varieties in the CR Plus trials, well, 1941 was entered, 1065 and a couple crystal varieties. 675 was the standard variety to compare against. And so what Daniel, and I know he's explained this, and I hope you've watched his presentation too, but there was a 3 spray program, and that was kind of our recommendation for CR Plus varieties. And there was a 6 spray program, and Daniel calculated the revenue, and you'll see that in these trials, the 3 spray program actually netted more. And so in this trial, they're ranked by net revenue per acre. And you'll see 1941 was the best performer in the trial. It had 18.2 sugar, and it was 43.7 tons, and it had very high tons for many growers this year. I didn't include the Kearns trial in any of my slides today because you've seen it if you watched Daniel's presentation, but alongside the Kern trial in Ontario, they planted on either side strips of 1941. And Daniel told me that they averaged 55 ton, the 2 strips, and would have been the best in the trial if it would have been included. But they limit the sugar beet advancement trials to 12 varieties, and in 1941 wasn't chosen to be in the trial because it was a specialty variety. But long story short, it's going to make a great choice for Ontario growers with limited fungicides. It's bringing high yield, and you should get great sugar too because you're going to control Cercospora better throughout the year. 1065, again, it's a similar story to 1941, and I leave the Guza trial in here because it was in the Guza trial. It was also in the standard sugar beet advancement trials, and you've seen that already, that it placed very high in those trials, and it's placed high in this trial. And so 1065 and 1941 are pretty similar varieties. 1065 might have a tick better in sugar than 1941. 1941 slightly better on Cercospora than 1065. So and you'll see that those numbers are in the Michigan Sugar 2-year data where they have the disease ratings in there. So take a look at that. 1941 was 41% of the checks, and 1065 around 50. Why do you want to grow CR Plus varieties? Well, I mean, some things to think of is it's just peace of mind. It's an additional tool that will help you control Cercospora all season long. You got management convenience, fields that are farther away from the shop. are kind of a pain to go and spray all the time, right? I mean, you got a lot of road time, so you can minimize your trips over to those farms. Gives you flexibility late season. I mean, with pre-harvest intervals and spraying, and gives you protection. Going into the fall when it's time to harvest dry beans or something else. It's you can put the sprayer away with these CR Plus varieties. They bring high yield and stability going into the fall. If there's Cercospora pressure, it's going to maintain your sugar and continue to give you tons moving into harvest, because you still have your canopy converting sunlight to sugar. And you can save money on fungicides. Another big reason, just roughly, if it's $25 an acre for your fungicide materials, you're saving $42 a unit every time you don't have to spray. So that adds up too. So you got enhanced suppression, and that's gonna lower inoculum levels as we move forward in the future, and just better for the environment. Save our fungicides. They'll become, it'll help keep our fungicides viable in the future. So just a few reasons. I'm sure you can even think of more why you should be growing CR Plus varieties. Are they growing CR Plus varieties in other places? Yes. Michigan, we had them last year. Mindac Farmers Co-op had them, and they probably had the most in the country. They were about 55% of their crop. Southern Minnesota Sugar Beet Co-op growers had them because they have a lot of Cercospora pressure, similar to ours. American Crystal this year, they want them, and we have our first generation available for the American Crystal beet growers this year. Western Sugar South have them available and are interested in them this year too. So history is important to look back, and instead of looking at just 1 year data, we have official trial data where they've been in a couple years, so you've got that to look at. And we had this trial out last year where we compared 1941 and 1703. The tonnage was very similar, 49 tons, 49 and a half for 1941, and we achieved 19 sugar with 1941 last year in 2020, and we had 19.5 sugar with 1703. So 1941 can perform. It's a full season variety. It'll take you right to the end of harvest and give you great yields and great sugar. First year varieties coming, I mentioned them briefly, but the important thing I want to show here is they're on approval track for RST. So we have 1122. You can look it up in Michigan Sugar data book, and then it was 48.13% of the checks. So really good on Cercospora, and it was also high yielding in official trials too. So that's pretty exciting. We have another one, Beta Seed 1183, again on approval track for RST. So CR Plus varieties coming with great RST. So that's what we're looking for, and we expect to just see them getting better and better, and we really look forward to that CR Plus nematode variety. Thank you for the business you've gave us over the years and last year, and we want your business again this year. We have a lot of great offerings for you and varieties, great performance. So give our salesmen a call. They're all geared up right now, ready to talk and on the phone or meet in person. So this is a list of the sales agents. We didn't have any changes this year, and my number's on here too. And so it's jot it down and give me a call. And I want to wish all the best to you and your families for this holiday season. And most of all, I wish that and I pray that everybody stays healthy, and because that's most important. So all the best. I have a quick video for you, and it's 2 minutes long, and hang in there, and I hope to see you soon.
Have you heard about KWS's CR Plus trait? Well, I want to tell you a little bit about the KWS CR Plus trait. We've incorporated the CR Plus trait in 2 beta seed hybrids this past season, and I'm in a field of beta seed 1941, and it is a CR Plus hybrid where the grower has sprayed the crop 4 times. We recommended a 3-spray program, and in general a 3-spray program has worked excellent, but you'll see from looking at these canopies in this field there's no Cercospora showing, and there's been a lot of Cercospora pressure this fall. So this grower's been extremely happy with the CR Plus, and it's allowed him to plant the CR Plus in fields that are farther away from his shop. He's been able to reduce his fungicide applications, save money on fungicide, plus it's gave him a lot of extra time. So I don't know how many days it takes you to spray your crop, but if you can reduce from 6 sprays down to 3, that's a lot of time that you have to do other things. So we really look forward to talking about our CR Plus varieties with you this fall. We have a lot of new stuff, new hybrids entered in official variety trials, and I expect to see some really exciting results. So give our salesman a call and let's talk about CR Plus and save you a lot of time this next year.
Beta Seed, breeding confidence.